As Greg and I hiked amidst the inspiring beauty, and it really was beautiful this week, leaves and high peak. As we walked through the inspiring beauty of the Uwharrie National Forest on Tuesday and Wednesday, Greg and I found ourselves near rivers, or memories of rivers. Whether we were walking alongside the Pee River, which flows into Lake Tillery and Lake Baden, or sitting on a large ancient rock that was situated in a dry creek bed where we were hiking on Mora Mountain. We found ourselves again and again near rivers, or memories of rivers. And I was reminded that there are times in our lives for walking along beside the river, admiring the beauty of the vegetation along the bank, listening to the sounds of the water splashing up against a rock, sensing the power of the flow that carries a leaf dancing down the river. But there are also times in our lives when we sense that the river must be crossed. We sense that we need to leave something behind for our own good. Or maybe something is threatening us on the banks where we now stand. Or perhaps we've just outgrown where we are, and we sense that it's time to move on to a new place in life. At these times, the river before us can be an obstacle, something that metaphorically at least stands in our way of getting to where we need to be. The Hebrew people knew something about that. A generation before, they had fled from their oppressors in Egypt, only to bump up against the Nile as they tried to flee from their pursuers. But God had provided them with a way across. God had pushed back the waters and opened up a path, as the storyteller tells us, a way where there had been no way before. And now again, a generation later, the people faced yet another river. This time, it was not so much what they were running from that presented the urgent need for crossing over. This time, it was something on the other side that was calling to them. They heard God promising them a land, a place where they could lay their burdens down and rest, a place where they could settle down, build homes, and build a life for themselves and for their children. But the river was no less a force this time than it had been a generation ago. This time it was the Jordan and not the Nile. But it was a formidable obstacle in their presence, nevertheless. And this time Moses, their faithful leader in the past, was dead. And their new, young, untried leader, Joshua, was at the helm. What were they to do? What Joshua did was to take seriously the power of God's presence among them. The people had built a wooden box, and they had put inside the box all the things that were most sacred to them. Holy objects, including the very scrolls on which the laws had been given Moses for the people. And they called this box the Ark of the Covenant of movie fame. The covenant chest of God, as the Message paraphrase calls it. And they believed that God dwelled there in and around that box in a mysterious and powerful way. Now, with our modern scientific worldview, we may find that to be more than a bit superstitious. I won't try to argue you out of that point of view. But isn't it true? Isn't it true that sometimes objects convey to us the very presence of a person? Isn't it true that happens in ways beyond our rational understanding at times? Today, some of us have brought pictures and objects of persons who are saints in our lives. People who have in some way shepherded us on our pilgrimage of life. Perhaps even helped us navigate a threatening life river and gotten us safely to the shore on the other side. And just the memory of that experience that these objects call to our minds can give us power in the present to carry on when times are challenging. It's just a thought, but I digress. Joshua took seriously the power of God's presence among the people. So he had the priests of the people pick up the symbol, that embodiment of God's presence, the covenant chest of God. And he had them carry it in front of the people. And then he told the people to fall in line behind that God presence and to walk straight for the river, straight for the obstacle that stood in their way. When they got to the river, its mighty waters were still flowing strong. And I can imagine the people beginning to whisper amongst themselves, "This isn't the way Moses would have done it." I don't know what the plan is that Joshua has, but it ain't working. But Joshua kept trusting in the presence of God amidst the people. Joshua told the priests to step off the banks of the Jordan and into the flowing water. And when they did, so the storyteller says, the waters began to stir and swirl. The waters began to push back on either side of that God box to create a dry path, a way where there had been no way, for the Hebrew people to cross over into the new space that was calling to their hearts. Okay, I think I know what you're thinking again. After we take a deep breath and we cheer those ancient Hebrews on their way, we're still left with our scientific minds. It's a nice story, but that doesn't happen in real life. Well, no, it doesn't happen in real life. At least as far as our literal minds can fathom. But something did happen that changed the lives of the Hebrew people. Something happened that gave them a new start, that provided them with a way through a difficult communal transition, and provided them a way where there was no way. And they experienced that way as the power of God's presence in their midst. And I'm a big enough believer in the power of presence to believe with them that we too are not alone in our river crossings either. It's been my experience that at times when I have pushed or pulled to make a difficult transition in my life, the power of presence has been crucial in seeing me through to the other side. There are times when I sense the presence of God alive in my life in ways beyond my ability to grasp it. And one of the primary ways that this presence seems to come is through the mystery that we celebrate today. The mystery of the communion of saints, as the ancient church called it. One of you may say something to me that helps me see things in a new light. Or one of you may simply stand next to me in solidarity. There are times when I can remember my grandmother's playful presence as we played with quilt squares on her bed. Or I can remember what it felt like to be in my granddaddy's narrow lap, balanced carefully on his knees as his large belly pushed me ever so slowly to the precipice, close to the edge. These images bring me comfort and renewal to carry on, even today. At times, I'm given the powerful presence of the witness of those who have crossed the river before me with undaunted courage. Susan B. Anthony, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, they all come into my mind. I'm embraced by the presence of those who faced life challenges and yet they persevered against the odds. Where I come to this table, our covenant box of God. It is our covenant box not because we believe God can somehow magically be contained here, but because we believe that the presence of God explodes wide open here. God's powerful presence in and through the life of Jesus, who gave his life so that the whole world would know that God is love. I don't pretend to know the science of any of this. Frankly, I don't spend too much time worrying about it. The power of presence does not conform to scientific laws. The power of presence has a life all of its own. Thanks be to God for that. So, friends, let us light candles today. Let us come to this table today. Let us come to the very banks of whatever river is confronting you and confronting me. And together let us open ourselves to the communion of saints, both living and dead. The communion of saints that surrounds us always. Let us open ourselves to the power of presence in our lives and in the life of our communities. Let us stand in that stream of life that has gone before us and that stream of life that will continue to go on after us. The stream of life that is around us even now. And let us know that God is here. Here in the present moment, in this river of life with us. God is alive in the rivers of all our lives. So let's not be afraid. Let's not be afraid of getting soaking wet. The temperature's good. Let's jump in. Amen.